Calling to order the board meeting for Diamond Lake School District 76. Roll call, please.
Ms. Angelola, here. Ms. Baylor, here. Ms. Hale,
Here.
Mr. Hellman,
Here.
Mr. Candela,
Here.
Juan, here. Ms. Sullivan.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we now open the floor for public comments on agenda items. Do we have any public comments this evening? If you're joining us on Zoom, please feel free to type that into the chat and we will read that into the meeting. Okay, we do not see any public comments. So there being no public comments, we will move on to presentations.
Okay, we have one presentation this evening, and that is just an update of all of our facility improvements and construction. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Rodders, and just for the sake of the public, all of our presentations have been translated. And so if you have questions or comments, you can make them right into the chat, and then Ms. Daisy Carrera is available as one of our panelists, and she can respond to you immediately. Daisy, do you mind translating that, please?
Sure. Solo por un recordatorio que todas las presentaciones de hoy están interpretadas en español. Entonces, si tiene alguna pregunta o comentario, siempre lo puede poner en el chat y estoy disponible para interpretar sus preguntas.
Oh, you know what? I have the speakers out, so she's probably speaking it to them.
Oh, so she can't hear. We can't hear her.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, because I turned off the speaker so that I had the system, so I'm sure she translated it.
Can you hear me?
All right. Well, I will give a brief update about the facility project to date. It's been really exciting. This is it's not as labor intensive in terms of we're not doing a lot of building HVAC renovations, things like that. This summer, it's a lot of aesthetic improvements, and it's the wide scope of all of our classrooms. So it's been really exciting. And Mr. Hanson took some pictures to kind of capture some of the progress. Just as a recap, we are renovating all the classrooms in the district: painting, lighting, flooring, furniture, technology. And at Diamond Lake School, they're going to be the pre-K classrooms got a full renovation. They're getting a new restroom, and we kind of reconfigured the classroom to get some more usable space to every student. And then the unit ventilators, and that's the main heating source in each of the classrooms. So those are the items that are identified on our life safety plan, and those are at least 30 years old. So we're really excited to replace those. Just a little bit of progress. The left is the hallway there. It's hard to remember or picture what that building actually looked like, but yellowed ceiling tiles, it was dark, dingy lighting. And now the progress so far is we started putting up the ceiling grid and white light and really bright hallways we have right now in conjunction with the new flooring we have put in. The classrooms there, each classroom is going to have new ceiling grid, new tiles, new light, and then the flooring is a real light colored floor, very similar to what we have in here. And the unit ventilators, it's going to give the teachers additional storage space. There's bookshelves that span on each side of that unit ventilator, so there's a lot of room for everybody. And each room is going to have an accent wall that matches the alcove color that we have. So every classroom's got, there may be a blue. This one's a blue, red. We have some lime greens and things like that. So it's going to be kind of some fun color schemes we have going on. And that's just a picture of the pre-K bathroom that we've renovated. West Oak, very, very similar. The only main difference is we're going to be adding a chiller plant replacement. So that's our main cooling source in the building. We have a unit that services everything on the middle school side. This unit services everything on the district office and the West Oak intermediate side. And that equipment was due to be replaced in about a year or so, which we would have had, a little trouble getting funds for if it wasn't for the under budget project that we've had it so far. So far, all the rooms have really had substantial completion so far. These are just some progress pictures where they're putting on some waterproofer. That's the red look there. And then that's the new flooring. So these rooms look really fantastic right now. And so far, the West Oak Middle School have had all their rooms released. They're ready to be moved in. And if you took a look in the gym, we're using it as a staging area for all our furniture. And over the next 2 weeks, we should have this entire building finalized. And it'll be nice because we'll give teachers about a month or 2 or 3 weeks to start moving back in their room, because there's a lot of unboxing and things like that they'll have. But maybe as we're making our way back for closed session, I'll be happy to show you guys what one of the rooms look like. But with the new furniture, really modular rooms, the new equipment, our teachers have been really excited to see what we're going to be able to bring them next year. So it's been a long time since we've been having the hand-me-down furniture of years past. And it's nice for once that I've been able to reach out to other districts and see if they need any furniture. So I can't imagine how many times it's been passed down, but at least it's still getting some use. And, we're finally able to really complete our 4 or 5 year plan that we've had in place since the referendum passed. This was always the biggest item that I think I wanted to complete in terms of just giving the kids something excited to walk in their rooms every day, but we never had the money for it. So there's debt certificates and the referendum. We've been making really good fiscal choices and really been able to do it under budget. And I think it's a tribute to our architects, our construction partners, and we've been able to do a lot of projects in-house. So any questions about that? So the last slide, though, Mr. Hansen has links for some more pictures. We've done a lot of upgrades or updates since we've originally started taking these pictures. So that's all on our website, and we're going to be, making sure to blast that out to the public and give them an idea what they may see in a couple weeks.
When did you say that they're all going to be done?
This whole campus will be done with construction by the end of this week and by furniture by the end of next week. Diamond Lake, with the amount of abatement that had to take place, the timeline's getting pushed a little bit more. So we furniture in place. It won't be till probably the end of probably August 10th, August 12th type of area. So we're hoping to get it about a week before school starts. But
Okay.
we'll be releasing rooms in different blocks. So the south hallway will get to move in maybe on August 5th. Middle hallway will get it, and then the north hallway will be the last to move in. But that had the least amount of renovations. So
Sure.
we'll be able to give teachers an appropriate amount of time to at least start getting their classrooms ready.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, that concludes our presentations for this evening. Now we are going to move on to the business agenda, and we have a number of action items this evening. The first item on the business agenda is the omnibus vote agenda. Items under the omnibus vote agenda are considered routine and or non-controversial and will be approved by one motion. If anyone, board member, staff, administrator, or citizen wishes to have a separate vote on any item or items, that item or item will be pulled from the omnibus vote agenda and voted on separately. Be it resolved that the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the omnibus vote agenda items A through E as listed. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Mr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Candela? Yes. Ms. Indrola? Ms. Bayless? Ms. Hale?
Yes.
One, yes. Ms. Sullivan?
Okay, that motion carries. Moving on to the second item. The second item is a review of press policies that came out in Press 107. For our new board members, essentially we get updated policies. Typically they have footnote changes. Sometimes it's policy language change, different things. That information all is in the packet. This is our first reading of them. So if you have any questions or people would like to have any discussion, we can do that now. They're not up for action tonight, but they will be at the August board meeting. And so if you don't have any questions now, we can always revisit that at that meeting in August as well. I think most of these are footnote changes, but
And if you look at your second attachment, it goes through each policy and tells you exactly what's been updated or what's been changed.
Are we gonna get a physical hard copy or do we just do it electronically?
Electronically. Because there's so many.
There's a
of them.
lot.
To like make notes and I don't know.
If you want us to print them out for you, we're happy to. I mean, if you would prefer that.
The actual pamphlet from press, right?
We would have that mailed to us and then we'd provide that to you. We don't get them anymore, do we? The actual paper copy? Okay.
It's usually like 100 or more pages.
Are you talking about the memo, Margaret, or are you talking about the actual policies?
The actual policies,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or does anyone have any discussion? Okay, like I said, these are just the first reading tonight, and so we will revisit them at the next meeting. If anyone has any questions in the interim, feel free to ask or to bring those up. Okay, moving on to item C, which is approving the tentative budget and setting the budget hearing. Eric, do you have a?
I will go over the presentation briefly, but what I would, encourage, if anyone wants to sit down and talk about it further, let's, set a meeting. I can kind of go over any of the specific attachments because, when you go through all the different budget account codes, it's multiple thousands of lines. So, I'd be happy to go over anything specifically after this presentation, but just an overview. What's being presented tonight is the tentative budget. The budget needs to be approved. The tentative budget needs to be approved, needs to be posted for the public for 30 days, and then there's an open hearing that takes place, and then that gets adopted officially and submitted to ISB. So tonight, I'm just going to go over, you've seen this on the board. You've seen this, we've been on the board before, but I'm just going over what, we do as part of the budget. As part of the budget process is we involve all the administrators, which involves their teachers, teacher leaders, and it's kind of a bottom-up approach and getting what everyone's needs are and making sure we fulfill those, and provide the appropriate materials for teachers. So the budget consists of staff salaries, benefits, purchase services, materials, and anything from the buildings and grounds and transportation side. You can kind of just skip that a little bit. Yeah. And as a reminder, we are held to the Illinois Program Accounting Manual standards, which dictates we have to do budget by fund. So our biggest fund is the education fund, which consists of teachers' salaries, benefits, any instructional supplies, and then food service. And then our next two biggest funds are our operations and maintenance, which our two maintenance staff, and any minor construction projects, custodial staffing, snow removal, things like that. And then transportation, our busing to and from school would be our three biggest funds. And in the most recent years, we've been working with our, and these are considered the operating funds, the education fund, O&M, transportation, the IMRF, and Social Security and working cash. So that's the main funds that a district will reference that stays pretty consistent year to year. Some of the other funds, I'll go to the next page. These are the ancillary funds that change year over year, like debt service, capital projects. So we've had a lot of projects over the last couple of years that we've seen expenditures with our major construction projects. And now we will have a couple years worth of life safety projects that have been approved. So referencing the operating funds, this is just an overview of what we are projecting our estimated revenues and expenditures are, and then our year-end fund balance. So as you can see, it's a little unique this year. I'm estimating a slight surplus of about $200,000, and that's mainly attributed to transportation. Right now when this budget was originally being developed, we weren't entirely sure what our programs were going to look like. So I anticipate this being one of the biggest changes between a tentative budget and official budget that we are talking about, our robust after school reading programs that we're going to be implementing, and then getting back to some more of the after school activity, that we really hope to bring back to the school. So I anticipate this getting a little bit more to a net, probably a zero in terms of the revenues and expenditures once I increase this. So I'll give a detailed memo when the official budget's adopted, what those changes would look like. Just a graph of the last couple of years, what we've seen our operating fund surplus and deficit. We've been lucky to have, several years of surpluses, which has helped build up our fund balance. These are unaudited numbers, but right now in the operating funds, we're about a $1.5 million surplus the last fiscal year. So even with all the challenging revenues and expenditures we've had to estimate and deal with over the last couple of years, we're able to have a pretty robust surplus, and that'll help us, with any unforeseen revenue gaps we may have in the future. This just goes over what our main overview of the revenues and expenditures. The one thing I want to point out on the right side there, it says 98%. That is going to be our estimated year-end fund balance compared to expenditure ratio. So that number's risen over the last 6 years from about 55% to now we're estimating about 98%. So that is the main goal of mine, at least, is to build our healthy reserves in terms of our fund balance, and especially, detailing with our operating funds. So we're moving in the right direction, at least. Okay, let's skip that a little more. Sorry, go back. So why the fund balance? It's really the main thing is the uncertainties we may see with our future funding formulas, any pension shifts that we may see. And then really the main thing the last year has been the tax collection rate. We've been at about 96 to 99%. Last year we were about 94% collection rate, which, is several $100,000 of lost revenue that may either get pushed to the next year, or, we're still waiting to hear back on what future years may look like based on this pandemic. So I'm still estimating about 93 or 94% this year. And CPI has risen over the last 2 years from 1.9 to 2.3. It is lowering slightly over the next tax levy year that we'll see. Go ahead. Just an overview too, just to show how reliant we are on property taxes. 75% of ours is coming from local property taxes. This year is increasing substantially with our federal sources, because we are estimating to get the bulk of our ESSER 2 funds, and then we'll get a small amount of our ESSER 3 funds in this fiscal year. So that'll take place over the next 2 or 3 fiscal years. We'll see an increase of federal revenues. The main thing I'll just point out is the federal revenues. Like I said, they're going to be increasing over the next couple of years. There is a rumor going around that we may have an ESSER 4 as well. So we're hopeful that we're going to see our federal revenues keep making up any potential gaps. But as you see, we've been able to be lucky with some surpluses. So we're going to use that just to address any learning gaps that we might have seen over the last year. Good. And really the last graph will show you just an overview of our salaries and benefits. So you can see how large of a percentage we're making up with just the teacher salaries. The salaries rose by 4.95% this year, and that was based off of our collective bargaining agreement, which offset the 13 retirees we saw. And now we're going to be bringing on new, more inexpensive teachers. So that is offset the increase. Next year's we're going to see a 4% over the next 2 years increase to salaries. So we still have 2 more years after this year on the CBA. So the debt certificate work is going to be completed. Once we're done with that, we'll be paying off the debt certificates over the next 9 years. We'll be completed with all of our facility work, and thankfully there's nothing new on the horizon. We can see as an unforeseen facility expense. We've really touched every part of this building, and especially protected the building envelope and the HVAC systems. And then some of the new additional ESSER expenditures. This year we have two new staff members, the additional floating interventionist and the instructional coach that we'll have, and the new curricular resources like Imagine Learning. So to go along with the new resources, we're going to have to provide some additional staffing to help facilitate that work, which will bring about some after-school expenditures with transportation and things like that. So that is going to be our main focus in terms of our curricular resources this year. And there is some potential new capital projects we may see on the horizon. We're going to be proposing exploring with our architect a new maintenance facility, and then a new potential outdoor learning space and a professional development space. So we're going to work through some budgetary numbers for that and see if any of that would fit under our ESSER 3 umbrella. And last, we do maintain a slight contingency of about $108,000 in our operating funds, just for any unforeseen expenditures that come up. And then the timeline is from July 1st to September 21st, we're going to be presenting the tentative budget for review for any of the public. Usually this would be approved in the first meeting of September, but since we canceled that meeting, we're going to be approving the budget, a little bit later this year, but it still needs to be filed before the end of September. So we have still plenty of time to adopt the budget, file it, and then start our next year. So is there any questions regarding the budget? I know it's kind of a quick overview. There's a lot of supporting documents that go along with that. And I'd encourage if anybody wants to see how I'm coming up with our future projections, why we're doing these projections, I'd be happy to go over that. But bottom line is we've been in a really good financial position the last couple of years, and especially getting our fund balance ratio close to 100% is I didn't think it was going to be a reality. That's what some of the other districts like Killdeer and stuff have. So we're really doing a good job saving some of our resources, and we can allocate those appropriately when we really get into the meat of what our learning needs are.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I know you've explained this in the past, so I apologize, but can you go over why the reason why we're estimating operating fund deficits in 2023, 24, 25, and sort of getting increasingly?
Yeah, this is the first year actually since I've been here, I've estimated a surplus potentially with our FY22 budget. So we do like to maintain being fiscally conservative. This allows us to add some new staff and allows us for any unforeseen expenditures. So, for instance, the biggest unknowns that I see as a budget is our outsourced services. So between insurance, transportation, and our custodial staff, that makes up a large percentage of our expenditures each year. And I've seen years where we've ended one transportation contract and we've gotten a 30% increase. That's $700,000 of unforeseen expenditures. Or our benefits package, we were able to go up 3% the last couple of years. COVID, I haven't seen a lot of expenses tied to that, but I don't know what some of the long-term results are going to be. So while our contract stipulates an 8% raise to overall benefit expenditures, I may be estimating a 10% just to capture some of that. And really I think the biggest thing is being conservative on our revenues. We don't know if there's going to be any future funding. So I like to stick to our general property taxes and then just the general base layers of state aid that we've seen. So I'd rather be under promising and over delivering when it comes to our expenditures and revenues.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will move to adopt the tentative budget and to set the budget hearing date. Whereas ILCSC 1055/17-1 directs the board to provide at least one public hearing prior to final action on the budget, and whereas notice of public hearing must be published in a local newspaper at least 30 days prior to the time of the hearing, therefore be it resolved, the Diamond Lake School District Board of Education approves the 2021-2022 tentative budget as presented and sets September 21st, 2021 at 7 p.m. as the date for a public hearing on the 2021-2022 budget. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Yes.
Yes. That motion passes. And now we have our last action item on the business agenda, which is personnel. Be it resolved, the Diamond Lake 76 Board of Education accepts and approves the personnel items as depicted on the agenda. We have 4 resignations. May I have a motion to approve, please? Yes.
Mr. Halter,
Yes.
Khan, yes, Ms. Sullivan.
Okay, that concludes our business agenda for the evening. Moving on to board discussion.
Okay, under board, excuse me, under board discussion, we have two attachments. And the first one is just the way to organize it is a slide deck on just some of the new CDC guidelines and then how they'll impact our school district in the fall. And so I just organized it, like I said, into a PowerPoint presentation. And then the second attachment is a draft of a family communication that we'd like to send out for Friday. But I wanted to bring this up to the board first so you knew kind of what the updated changes were from CDC, the guidance changes, and then how we plan to implement them in District 76. So the first slide just talks about some of the changes, and these changes were adopted. The Centers for Disease Control put them out on July 9th, and then Illinois adopted them immediately right away. So basically the changes from the past have been that vaccinated individuals now do not need to wear masks. Unvaccinated individuals should wear masks. Masks are not needed when you're outdoors. All individuals must wear masks while riding a bus, and what that means is public transportation. So we targeted it to our school as far as like our school buses. Provide 3 feet of social distancing when possible. And we added the words when possible. We've been doing that since the spring when we had 70% of our students back in person. But if there's situations where students are working cooperatively or if they're eating in the lunchroom where it's not always possible, it's still allowed. And that's, again, the updated guidance so it doesn't interfere with learning or school operations. Students who have not been vaccinated under a quarantine order must be provided with remote learning, and that's something that the Illinois State Board of Education approved at their May meeting that we presented to you earlier in the spring. And so some of the quarantine changes that have been put in place. So for vaccinated students and staff, you will not need to quarantine if you're identified as in close contact with someone. However, for unvaccinated students, so those who wear a mask and are tested for COVID and then follow all the mitigation procedures that we have in place in our schools in our district, you will not need to quarantine if identified as a close contact. So that's, unvaccinated students who wear a mask. But those who do not follow guidelines, essentially, and that don't wear a mask, will need to quarantine for 10 days if identified as a close contact. And the last two are being reviewed by the Lake County Department of Health. So right now that's the CDC guidelines, and Lake County is monitoring those closely. So just to review some of our mitigation efforts in District 76, as you know, we've been promoting vaccination clinics, for students and family members who are 12 and above, but once, and they're saying in September, hopefully after Labor Day, that vaccinations might be available for students or children under or the ages of 5 to 11. So we'll continue to promote those vaccination clinics when they're authorized to do so. We're going to require masks in the district for unvaccinated individuals and also provide them if needed. We, as Eric has explained in our facility updates, have improved our ventilation system. We have the physical distancing in place, for arrival, student departure, in classrooms, in the lunchrooms, in the hallways. And then we also have our rigorous cleaning and disinfecting services with our custodial staff. We are promoting hand washing, we have contact tracing, and then we also have the BINEX program now for testing for unvaccinated individuals if needed. And then Mr. Rogers is looking to the statewide system, Ice Shield, to see if that's something that we could qualify for at a reduced or no cost. So moving forward, excuse me, we would like to communicate the plans to our community on Friday, July 23rd, and that's the second letter that you see, or the second attachment is the letter that you see attached that outlines the procedures for guidelines for vaccinated individuals as well as for unvaccinated individuals. We will also modify our district procedures to include the new guidance and communicate that's in the letter, but then also internally to our staff. We're going to identify the vaccine status of individuals to aid in procedures for contact tracing. We're continuing to work with the Lake County Health Department on any updates and information. And then as always, that we have been just staying updated with all the guidance, because as we all know, it's been a dynamic situation, and guidance has been changing depending on the local circumstances of vaccine levels and or the community spread of COVID. So that's just a brief outline of, like I said, some of the changes, what we're going to be doing, and then looking ahead. So does this board have any questions or comments?
Question, because I know that the identifying vaccination status can be a little sticky. Has there been guidance as to how that is done following the Lake County Department of Public Health, or is this would this be something that would be on a needed basis should somebody be identified as being in close contact, or would this be something that would be done like preventatively? Or
I think we would like to ask, that's loud. I think we would ask, and I'm going to check with my colleagues of what other districts are doing, but providing those vaccinations. So what is that, through a vaccination card and when they register? And so we're small enough, I feel like, so we can ask for that, and our school nurses are able to obtain that information. And then we'll be able to know, keeping a running list of, and that would just be shared with principals, of who's vaccinated and who isn't. And then we can monitor that, as far as for contact tracing goes. And what the CDC is also recommending is, as more students get vaccinated or children get vaccinated, we can start, peeling back some of the mitigation efforts that we have.
So on Monday, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with their recommendation, which is slightly different from the CDC's. Does their guidance impact any of these policies?
No, because right after that they came out with that recommendation or their direction, Dr. Ezike from the Illinois Department of Public Health said that Illinois is going to follow the CDC guidelines for schools. So I feel pretty confident as far as just, like I said, the size of our district, all of our mitigation efforts, the amount of staff that we have that have been vaccinated, and just the protocols we have in place, and then the communication that our principals have, not only with staff, but also with families. I think we'll be able to monitor this closely.
That's good. Does anyone have any more questions, comments?
All right, then we'll prepare to send the letter out to families on Friday. And then we'll just, like I said, continue to keep watching the guidance and then update the board as well as the community as needed. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, that concludes board discussion. Moving on to freedom of information requests. We had two, they were both fulfilled. And then going to notices of communications. As usual, we have the board meeting calendar. And then we also have a document for CEDAL on board orientation. There's a meeting, right?
It's a virtual meeting, and I think I forwarded you the email yesterday, but I just wanted to keep this here in case you lost the email to go back to. So there's a virtual governing board training that CEDAL is providing. So if any of you would like to attend that, did we decide on who's going to be is it going to be you, Mr. Homan?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I know you attended the last one.
I'm happy to do it, but I'll certainly step aside if anybody else wants to wrestle over it.
I think you might be our tribute for now.
It is during the day.
I know. I wonder if we could find out if maybe they're going to record that session, just because for anyone that works, it is kind of in the middle of our workday. You did? Okay, great. Great.
We can find out though if it's recorded, and then we can send you guys the link.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. Thank you. Okay. Trying to see. That's it for notices and communications. Moving on to public comments. Do we have any public comments and petitions on non-agenda items this evening? Again, if you have a comment, please feel free to type that directly into the chat box and we will read that into the meeting for you. Thank you. I don't see any. Okay. Okay, there being no public comments, we will move on to others. I don't think we have anything for others tonight. Does anyone have anything? Okay, then we will adjourn into executive session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Second. Mr. Candela? Yes. Ms. Kwan? Yes. Ms. Angarola? Yes. Bayless? Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay,